I want to call this meeting to order. I'm Bernice Baste Martinez, public member of the board, and want to introduce all who are present at the front table, starting at my left.
Good afternoon, John Vertito. I'm the nursing educator.
Kate Brown, executive officer.
Good morning, or afternoon. I'm Laura Friedman, former and substitute legal counsel.
And Rebecca Bond, legal counsel with the exception of the last few weeks.
Okay, thank you so much. Want to introduce schools represented at the board meeting, and I don't have a volunteer sign-in. Thank you so much. Casa Loma College.
Good afternoon, I'm Janet Nishina.
Thank you. Shasta College. Good afternoon. Welcome, we're glad you're here. Glendale,
Hi, Arnold Daddy.
welcome. Pasadena City College,
Carla, Donna, thank you for having us.
thank you for being here. Career Care Institute,
Good afternoon, Linda Malik Jones from Career Care in Lancaster.
thank you. Did we miss anyone who did not sign in? Thank you. Would you, Dr. Brown, like to introduce your staff?
Absolutely. We have supervising nurse executive consultant Cheryl Anderson that's here. Nurse education consultant Julia Zilkler. Our newest addition, Beth Dion, Margarita Valdez. See, there's so many of you guys. I'm so excited. Jessica Gomez, and now I'm going to do it again. I do it every time, and you still have to just love me. It's Faith, and I always forget your last name. Faith and last name. Silverman, that's it. Yes, so we have an amazing, amazing team. I'm so excited.
Thank you, thank you. While it's not listed, this is a public meeting, and we're a state agency, and I'd like to ask my colleague to the left to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Following the agenda, we want to start with matters related to the National Council licensure examination and opening with the discussion and consideration of presentation from the Southern California Directors of Vocational Nursing Program and their request for candidates' names associated with the program's input, pass and fail statistics.
Are there representatives present?
Would you
I think they're on the podium so that you guys can look at the podium.
give you a formal place to talk with us?
Wow, thank you. I thought we were going to talk from right here.
Yeah.
Together. You like this too.
When you're ready, please go ahead.
Well, good afternoon.
And again, if you'll be kind enough to identify yourself by name for the record, we are being recorded.
Okay, my name is Janet Nishina, and I'm Arvella Batty. Arvella Batty is with me. We're here to hopefully see if there's a possibility of having names of the candidates who have passed their exam or who are taking the exam and they've either passed or failed, and the cohort dates. The reason we believe that this is of a necessity is so that we as schools can do our job to make sure that we increase the pass rate and maintain our pass rates. And without knowing that information, it makes it very difficult for us. This allows us to evaluate the outcomes that we may have made towards our admissions procedures, our curriculum procedures, even if we've done an exit exam. So we want to be able to find out if we've made changes, has it been effective or not, and if we're getting a piece of paper that has that information blocked out, we don't even know when or what their cohort was, we don't know how long they've been out. That's one of the problems. The other issue is that when we get this information and it just has 3 took, 1 passed, 2 failed, or something like that, and not knowing where they're from, are they even our graduates? That does happen occasionally. They are not our graduates. They are another school's graduates. And occasionally, in the past, when we have had that information, when we had the names, when we had the cohort dates back when, I've been around for a couple of years, we used to be able to see that. And yes, I've had students that had 100, the past, and I go, yeah, this is great. But it wasn't my student. It wasn't a graduate of my college. And I would have to contact the board to say, this is a person that doesn't belong to me. And then again, I could also have students that were, or graduates that were on that list that were not mine and had failed. And so that's very important, especially if that information can contribute to that school being put on provisional accreditation and or being and possibly moving into a closure status. And so we want to do the best that we can to increase the pass rate for the state as well as our school. And so we believe that this information is extremely important. The other thing is we do have outliers, people that haven't taken this exam 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, and they're able to take that exam. We want to know that information and how these outliers impact our pass rates. And so that becomes something that we're really concerned about.
Thank you so much. We also want to be able to believe that this information will be helpful to us, and not only being able to identify the ones that are, especially the outliers, because if they're out there, then we want to see what is the reason why they're out there, what is preventing them from taking that exam. A lot of times when they leave, they have passed the exit. Okay, so if it's amount of it being a financial problem, then maybe the institution can be able to help them and pay those fees up front to get them out there. If it's because they still need a little bit more time, then maybe we can provide remediation. A lot of times when students leave, they're outliers and they take on a job at the Olive Garden, but they don't want to actually come back and take their exam. They're outliers, and we need to find out this reason. It will be able to help us a little bit more. Being in an institution, you want to be able to have these students be in practice. As you know, we're in a shortage, so then the more they're out there, the more outliers that are out there is not helping us increase the LVNs. We want to be able to know that the student has an opportunity not only when they fail, what did they miss? Okay, if they miss something, this helps us also to not only evaluate the curriculum, but also prepare us for the next test plan of what we also need to change. By the student continuing to be out there, it's like leading the blind in the dark. It's like driving in the dark. You can't help your curriculum. You can't help the student, and we're sure not improving the pass rates, nor are we helping clinically prepared students become clinically practiced nurses. And so these are the things and the reasons why. And as together, as directors, when we come together to see what is effectively working, what can schools collectively change within programs. So you can kind of like standardize some curriculum, so then therefore, if we're all on the same page and teaching the same things, then our rates should obviously go up. And these are the things that prevent us if the students are left in the dark. Also, students themselves, they want the help, but then they don't know that we are able to reach out to them because, again, they're out there for a reason and they feel that they're embarrassed. And we want to take that stigma away from them, from ask for the help so we'll know. But if they don't have to ask for the help, we can reach out to them and say, we're here, we're ready for you. And so these are the things that we believe that identifying the names will be able to help us with.
The other thing we know is that if these students are out past that 6-month period, we know their knowledge base is beginning to slip off. And we want to catch them. We want them to take that exam within that 6-month period. So if we can get the list of the students' names, we can check these students off or grads off and say, yes, this cohort, yes, this cohort. So we know, and then we can see the students that have it. We can get a hold of them, emails, phone calls, whatever it is, so that we can get them in. Work with them individually so that we can assist them. Okay? And that's our goal. We want to improve the pass rate for the Board of Nursing and for our schools.
Also, by any student that is out there and does not take an exam more than 6 months, statistics already show that the longer they're out, it increases the chance of pass rates. And so the longer they're out there, not only are they at risk for not passing, but then when they do decide to come up to take the board, take the national examination, if they have not received remediation and they pass it, how clinically competent are they? Because we have not had the opportunity to reassess them, especially with the test plans changing every 3 years and things are changing. 6 months out there and longer, and then the students are taking too long to take the exam, it only increases that they are a risk to not only for competency, but also a risk to the public if they do pass the board, because we haven't really assessed competency.
And that's where, when we look at that second phase of limiting that, taking that exam within that 6-month period, and then the students or the graduates come back to the school for application paperwork and meeting with us to do a flex review and competency days, we want to make sure that our students or these graduates can meet the 2518.5 and the 2518.6 requirements of the scope of practice and professional standards. And this is our guarantee that they can, when they finish with this, period of refreshing. And we're going to feel confident then that they can go out and take that exam and pass, and then get a job and be competent. We don't want to find out that our graduates, because of a lack of experience over time period, are now going to get themselves in a predicament where they could lose their license. We don't want that to occur.
And we also want to be comparable with, just using the BRN as an example. We know that this information is already released to them, and it does be able to help them to be able to improve their rates. Not only that, to be able to help their students, but other states also have this information has been released, and they get actually even more details, such as Nevada. They actually not only get the information, they also get what they failed, what subject they failed, how many times they have taken the exam, if it's the first, second, or third time. So this information in Nevada is actually even given more. However, we're not even asking for the scope to even be going out that. We really just would like to know the name of our student and the cohort that they're in the graduation, so we can accurately match it up. And so we don't believe that the information that we are asking actually violates anything regarding FERPA, any privacy or anything, because we do believe that this information helps them. And so also in tying in with that, the FERPA actually also identifies that information that is given to accrediting bodies is not actually has to be given for consent if it helps the student as far as you're doing a study on the student in relation into improving. And so if the case is that we don't have to get consent, then we won't. But if we do have to get consent, I'm pretty much sure as at our last open meeting, students did stand up and they did public forum indicate that this is in the best interest of students because they do would like to help. is to come back into also into our 6-month period. We believe that if you look at some of the business codes, they're a little bit vague when we believe that this 6-month period can be tied in. And we're asking that we look to actually put an amendment into the vagueness of it, and we're specifically talking about into 2510 through 2514, where it indicates there's some vagueness of the 6-month time period. Here it is that we have an ATT that is out there for 6 months. The students have that opportunity to take it within 6 months. However, if they don't take it within 6 months, then they obviously have to come back and reapply. Now, their application is abandoned in 2 years. We believe right there that there's a gap, and we're asking for that 2 years to actually bring it down to the 6-month period. And we're asking for the student to be then actually as a penalty to take place. And the reason is that because we're serious about improving rates, we're serious about improving the pass rate. The accountability also has to be on the student to go ahead and take the exam. If they have left the school competently and prepared to pass an exit, then they are ready to take the examination. We cannot force them to take the examination, but if a penalty actually applies to them, that if they do not take it within 6 months, that they not only lose their application fee and they will have to reapply at that 6-month period, but also we're asking for they have to then come back to the director of nursing and then get a remediation because they're out of their 6-month period. The chances of statistics increasing the pass rates of them failing is out there. So we want to limit that and make it at the 6 months so we can time in. We all know that times have changed, and we are getting more increased mortality and morbidity with our patients. Things are taken when we have comorbidities that are playing into place. If we're going to continue to make sure that the people that we put out there to take care of the public, we want to ensure that they are competently able to do the job. And how they're competently able to do the job, if we're able to keep a hold of them, providing them with that remediation, and we put our finger stamp on the student and say they are ready to take the exam. Once they leave, if they're out of our control and we have no control over when they take it, we're asking for the 6-month stamp to actually do that for us, so that ties the accountability back to the student to go ahead and do it. If not, they lose the consequences of having to do it all over. Most students, if they know that if there's a penalty, they'll take that chance to take the exam. And these are the things that we're not trying to make it where it's so much a penalty on the student. We're trying to put the pressure for them to go ahead and take the exam so we can get our grade. We don't want to be California with the worst rates. We want to improve our rates. And we believe as a collective body, these are some of the things as all directors are facing that this will be able to help us.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
Well, at this time, before we go with the comments, I believe this topic was addressed previously in 2005. Laura, I believe you actually wrote the board certificate.
So I have been the board's counsel in the past and have given advice on this very topic, and also another prior counsel, George Ritter, has also given some advice on this. And the departments, I believe that our opinion is that under the Information Practices Act, that the board is prohibited from sharing that information globally with the schools. There is within California the Information Practices Act. It's part of the Civic Code. It applies to all state agencies, and basically takes all the personal information that a state agency holds and it protects it, and it creates a bubble and prohibits the state agency from releasing that data if it's the personal information of an individual. And our office has done an analysis of that, and we consider both the test score, certainly the pass-fail, as well as the date that you take in the exam to be one that's protected. So speaking strictly to that issue of the release of the information out to the schools, I believe that would require a statutory change. You could probably obtain that. I mean, that's something that the board could look at, whether or not to create an exception. But I think based on the current law, at least under the Information Practices Act, that information can't be released wholesale. There's specific exemptions under, if there's subpoenas, if there's notice to consumer, if the consumer themselves requests that information, those exceptions apply. But I think the kind of wholesale information that's being requested, which is, I would like the data of the students that were in my cohort, to be disclosed to this program, I think would violate that. And so the board, with my advice and George's advice, Mr. Ritter's advice, has given out consolidated data because there is a provision within the Information Practices Act that says basically if you make the information in the aggregate and you sanitize it so that it can't be tied back to the individual, then you can release it. And so the position that the board has taken is that it can release the information in aggregate because that does not disclose what's happening to individuals. And unfortunately, I think the request is specifically so that you can tie it back. There's a disconnect between the way that we're releasing the information that it could be used the way that it's sought. I think it would conflict with the release of the information. So I don't know if there's other things that could be explored, whether or not, certainly once a person is licensed, that information, the date upon which they're licensed, that's public. The issuance of the license is a public. It's a benefit the board issues it. Attached to that privilege that the state issues of that license, those certain obligations, and among those are notification of that issue. So that's the concern, at least in terms of the cohort data and the individual exam.
So just to reiterate, for a way to track it back to the individual testee, it's not to be released. Name, address, graduation date, etc. Would the cohort number be acceptable or not?
What do you mean by that?
Graduated October 2016. Would that be too narrow? Or
So the challenge that I think that the board is going to get into with that is if you get sufficiently narrow, and it does depend, for a school that's a larger school, that data is going to be sufficiently aggregate. So if you're graduating 50 students a cohort, that's probably not the problem. The concern comes when you get 20 students or even fewer. And what happens is if the board releases that data by cohort, it starts to be tracked. You start ending up being able to make a connection between the individual because of the data isn't sufficiently sanitized or anonymized. And also, from what I hear, that's the reason that you want it. You don't want anonymous data. You want specific data so that you can accomplish the purposes for which you're trying to get at. So the board can release it as long as it's aggregate and not specifically tied to an individual, but if that happens, that doesn't suit your purpose.
No, and thank you definitely, Mrs. Freeman, for telling us that that's one of the reasons why we're asking for the board to go back, because you indicated that this was done in 2005 as an analysis, and the reason why we're saying that is that currently the RNs in California are currently giving it. So if we're all under one consumer affairs, then one organization cannot give it, then you deny it. The RN cannot give this information, then you deny the BVNPT directors from getting it. And currently, right now, we have something that is given actually 2012 and is still currently blacked out. The last name, the first name, the middle name, the candidate ID number, all blacked out. This is what the RNs currently get from California school. It still lists their information. So when you're saying that they're giving it as an aggregate, this is given as individual. And so we do want to make sure that the board has recognized that this is information that's blacked out. This is what the California BRN is given from the NCSBN. So we're asking that If they're getting it and they're getting this information as an individual, this is what we're asking. We're not even asking to the fact of their candidate ID number. We are asking for their information, their name, and their cohort date. So this information is what we're saying is that that's a 2005 analysis. We're asking that you evaluate it based on your current of 2012. I think if we were at the last board meeting, we indicated that you will go back up to the ground and talk to the BRN and see how they are doing. We're asking to give them proof that this is what they're currently getting. So we blacked it out for you. You can actually look, keep it, but we're asking that you evaluate it currently on today's phase and not 2005, respectfully.
So, I mean, I did look at the analysis that was done, and I concur that it still applies. BRN is a different client, and so I.
So much of that, but how is it different?
I
Two
don't
separate
know.
boards.
They're separate boards, and so I looked at what the analysis that was done in 2005. In 2005. It also was consistent with analysis done in 1994. So this isn't a new issue. There may, if for some reason this board gave out that information at some point, maybe there was a gap in that analysis. But I can't speak to BRN because they're not my client and they're not here. So that's a different issue.
We're also looking into respectfully. I think one of our previous directors who was unable to be here today did her own study and called most of the LVN boards in other states, and they're getting it from Pearson View. So we're tying it now, even not for the BRN, we're tying it also now to our own. If everybody, and this is taken from her, and I'm only going to say it because she went on record with it last time. Our BVNPT in California is the only one that is not giving it. All other compact states are giving it. So if this rule applies to everyone else and not California, then obviously something is wrong. We're asking for you to help us with this because all the other states are giving it and we're not.
So
You need, if I may, you need to also understand, California is a sovereign state. The 50 states and the 4 territories that make the United States are each individual sovereign states, and therefore California makes its own rules. Arizona, Nevada makes their own rules for nursing. So what applies in one state may not necessarily apply in any other state or territory. Now, if they accept it, that's fine, but currently, each of the other 49 states make their own rules in regards to the Nurse Practice Act, in regards to what LVNs and RNs can and cannot do. That's up to each individual state. Ours is something different, so please be aware that when you compare us to another state, it's another different board of nursing, another LVN, another RN, or a combined board, but they have no jurisdiction here within the borders of California. The one thing I do want to ask is that, as you said, outliers and graduates, how much are the schools keeping in contact with these graduates to find out what is your test date? Did you receive the notification? What's your study plans? What are you doing? Are the schools doing that outreach necessary to their graduates who have not taken the licensing exam yet,
Yes.
or who have lost contact? How many schools are making that effort? And I'm saying yes, does that be your school and your effort? But it's kind of hard to cover the entire state, or at least the Southern California director.
Yeah.
So,
And definitely respectfully, John, in our meetings we discuss these, and most directors are on board because we're facing the same challenges and obstacles. And so I cannot speak as a whole for everyone. The consensus of the directors is the reason why we're bringing this. And we brought this originally in 2015 because it's a common problem. I can speak for Northwest College in Glendale. I am on the phone trying to reach them outliers. Our career services is on the phone. We call them on a continuous basis, so much to the fact that they think that we're debt collectors. Okay, so I'm doing the best that I can with the body and the resources to be able to reach out to them. We go door knocking. Okay, I stick my cards in the door. I do a lot. I email. I do a lot. So I'm only one body, but I'm trying to clear up the problem with Northwest College in Glendale because I want to be able to reach out to them. However, they're not calling back. They're not responding. And so they're out there, and we can't. We've offered a lot of things to incentivize them to bring them in. paying for gas cards, a lot of things if this is an issue to help them and see what is the obstacles. The students are not responding. And so we're left with them out there being there not knowing what is the reason. However, our hands are tied at some point. And so this is the reason why collectively we're coming as a body and asking for this help.
But you also know, those that get tested, their names become published. So you compare your notes, it's like A, number 1, 6, 2, 3 have all passed. 4 or 5. And on the list, they have to put on licensure. If they fail, you know that it comes back. Again, you don't have that information who failed, or if they haven't tested yet. Because you're not going to know until they actually test.
The other part of that too, John, I don't mean to interrupt, is that we also know that once they pass, they have a time period in which they have to pay their monies. And some of them are going to drag that out for a long period of time. So while we're waiting for them to pay the monies, they're not showing up on the board website. So that creates a problem for us to know besides the when. The other day I was looking up a graduate and who had told me they had passed. And yet they're not showing up on the board yet. Is it due to them not paying the money? Is it due to the not being processed yet into the briefs? The other thing I did find another one. It doesn't give me a date as to when, it's processed even. And so that can be a problem, especially if these graduates have now passed the exam and now want a reciprocity or endorsement into another state. We're filling out the paperwork and it wants to know when that happened. There's no dates for us to look at to say when. I've had 3 students now that have moved to other states, and there's no dates to fill out on paperwork when they took their exam.
I'm in the same boat. I know exactly what you two are saying, and I understand. But the other part you also have to is that the leverage for a director, once they graduate, shrinks to 0. The only thing you have is if they haven't paid their bills, it's like, I can't send the paperwork because you haven't paid. And if you send it forward, you may never get there. Or it actually goes to collection. I'm not sure. Excuse me. But one of the things that we need to look at is we have to be we're state agents. We have to be in compliance. The problem that I see at this point is resources and either change the law, leave it as it is, or what can we do within the parameters of legal. This would help me also. The other aspect is that while the student is at the school, what type of rapport are we building with the students to make sure that we're always here for you? We are going to be here for you, and what type of messages are we giving them while we have them to make them successful? Because frankly, you know as well as I do, this board holds every school responsible to the point of only the first exam. And that's the scale we evaluate. We evaluate each school is what's your pass rate on the first exam. And that's just something that's the standard. And that's what you're trying to prepare. So if we get the students prepared on the front end to the point where they're confident, most of them will be willing to take that exam in that 6-month time frame because they have the confidence, they have the knowledge, they have the professionalism to be successful, to go in with that high expectation of passing. But if we don't instill that while we have them now, what happens when they graduate? Then they say, I don't want to spend more money. I don't feel comfortable. And I've seen that too many times going on the front.
Given the interest in time and the importance of the discussion topic, let me see if I can summarize where we are. We've had a very good presentation with a rationale that supports your request. We also find ourselves as a board in a circumstance where there are obstacles, and obstacle probably is not the appropriate term, but there are regulations, rules that would prohibit us from addressing your request in a yes manner. That said, We certainly do understand and appreciate the circumstances that the lack of information does create for all schools, all directors, and where it places you in terms of your relationship with this board. In other words, in terms of pass rate. We would suggest, based upon the discussion, that you go back with your colleagues and look at what might be done within the parameters of the current regulation. What other means or pathway might be taken that would help to address the concern you've raised. We too see it as being a significant concern. Unfortunately, given the current status of the rules and regulations, we have no authority to ignore the rule and regulation, and therefore placed in a position where we really can do no more than hear what you had to share with us. Did I summarize that for us?
I think you did very well on that.
We do want you to understand, we really appreciate the amount of work that you put into this. We hear you in understanding that you need another source of information. Unfortunately, the manner in which you presented a means of getting that information, we do not have the authority to be of assistance to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item. Discussion and consideration of the 2017 NCLEX test plan. Jeff, any presentations, commentary?
Yes, the new test plan has just been released by the National Council. And we place it on the agenda so that you know we will be sending out that same information to every program with the recommendation that they review the current curriculum, compare and contrast with the new test plan to ensure that their curriculum covers, that all the information in there covered and required in terms of the new test plan is covered within their curriculum. Certainly, we are not requesting that any school, and not recommending that they teach specifically to the test plan, but to ensure your students have a valid education, we need to ensure that at least you're covering that specific information. So that will be going out to all schools. We will also have them to return an analysis to their assigned consultant, and at that point we will be establishing a schedule for completion of the revision. So it's basically information is the reason for the agenda.
Thank you very much. And in the chairs, thank you so much. The chair has just noticed that she did not address item 4B. We do want to make sure there's an opportunity to discuss that. It is, and I'll read for you, a 6-month time limit for a candidate to take the NCLEX after receiving the authorization to test, and required authorization by program director before any retake of the exam. That was included as part of the discussion previously, but it is my understanding we certainly, if we wish, can address the 6-month limit.
Here's one other piece of information that the committee needs to be aware of. And I did go back and check again this morning to be sure that nothing has changed. The authorization to test, because that's what they're asking, 6 months after the board determines eligibility and deems them eligible. And printed directly from the National Council's website and this review. And it reads as follows: after an influx registration is created, in other words, after the student applies to take the exam, once the board has deemed eligibility, the the registration will stay open for 365 days, waiting for candidate eligibility from the Board of Nursing. Once you are made eligible, you must test within the validity dates on the authorization to test. So that's where the 365 days comes in, and that's a year.
Thank you. And those representatives from the southern part of the state, any question or comment related to this new information?
No, Dr. We believe that we addressed it earlier when we were asking for the vagueness of the statutes, even though we're looking at also the abandonment. So we do recognize and thank you, Cheryl, for actually bringing that part up. But our request was not only just for the 6-month period, but also that abandonment actually to the vagueness part to actually take place, where we want them no longer to have that 2-year abandonment. The abandonment we were requested for the 6 months to take place. So we're clear.
365.
Right.
Yes,
right.
So we're legal.
And so my concern is that if we wanted to look at that would prohibit individuals from just reapplying. So the abandonment of the application isn't necessarily going to address the concern raised, because the abandonment of the application just means that the word staff doesn't need to track of those further staff services. So the board itself doesn't need, statute, how long it contains those documents go away, and then if somebody wants to reapply, then they need to reprove that, they'll complete the new application, get their fingerprints done, and kind of start the process all over again. The abandonment of the application wouldn't necessarily prohibit them from reapplying, because they would have already hit the check mark of, I've already taken a course. In other words, they could come back in 2 years and still reapply. They met the criteria to sit for the exam right now if they successfully completed a program.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other board comment? All right. We will move to item 5, consideration of program placement on provisional approval. We'll start with Career Care Institute Ventura. Representatives for that institution, if you'll approach the podium, if there's comment.
Good morning.
Good morning and afternoon to you.
Hello. Dr. Stevens from the Care Institute. I represent the Ventura campus, where we have received violations that are in the process of being corrected. And we also have asked for a 30-day replacement class. The probation that we have been, we haven't been put on probation yet. However, we have received a letter stating that our violations were, and we also have had our ongoing classes rescinded. And I'm here today to plead to the board about the ascension of all our classes, which was the last one was August 29, so we should have been able to start a class. We have been having a 45 student enrollment up to 4 times a year. And our classes have been rescinded. The corrections for the violations that were given to Mrs. Gomez Baker visit on July 5th and 6th was spearheaded by student complaints. So the student complaints have been addressed, and the violations that we are on right now are being addressed. Mrs. Denise McAvoy was the DON at the time, and there were some administrative issues that were brought about that, and she wasn't there, she was on vacation, so some administration issues that had come up as well as complaints from students. And Mrs. McAvoy did answer to the complaints, which involved her, and then the ones for the 5th and the 6th came against the student itself. I have personally recorrected two of the violations. The ones that she had sent in for correction were not accepted by the boards. She resigned the same day she sent in the corrections. She resigned that day. So then I had to be reappointed as the director of that campus in order to work on the corrections from boards. Some of the violations that were strictly administrative type violations, particularly the one about us not doing violation 1 of all, which was the admissions criteria that came in, and it seems that we were under 2 separate policies. The policies had been changed and had not been updated. It was the violation of 1 in particular. It was about the wonderment scores on our verbal and mathematical scores on the wonderment entrance exam. What the board found was that we had students that were doing in our policy, which was the old policy. Students were admitted that had not met the criteria of the wonderment, and according to the admission policy, was supposed to be put on remediation in math and verbal to meet the criteria of being admitted. Subsequently, these students had not been entered with lower scores, and they were admitted but did not receive the remediation from the beginning as they were needed. So this caused the violations for us. And some files were the current students that were graduating, these were the files that were reviewed. And according to the board's they had found 16 files that provided documentation that the students were admitted to the program with low test rates on the wonderment, but had not been provided with the remediation that was promised in the policy. Since that time, as I went back to start recorrecting the violations, I went through all of the records and I acquired all of the wonderment scores, not only from this class that graduated July 1, but the classes, all the active students at the school. And we did not find the 16. I didn't find the 16, but I did look to make sure that all of the students had been seen. No students have been admitted since that time under the old policy. The new policy was put in place. However, as it turned out, even though the new policy was in the VN guidelines, the actual policy itself was not dated. So therefore, the students that were admitted under that policy were no longer at the school. Every student that had been admitted since that time was under the new policy, which the new policy, which made the scores for passing the one to get 300 and 350. So, and the old scores were very quantitatively, so the one to get the minimum score was 250, and the verbal score was a minimum of 350. So these were the two criteria that we did not meet in giving these students, the remediation of that class. Once I went back and looked at all of the remediation scores and looked at all of the wonderment scores of that class, we had one student that had not met the criteria and had not attended remediation. She was assigned, but she did not attend remediation. These students have since then graduated. Their last class date was July 1. As a matter of fact, some of the students that Mrs. Gomez was speaking to had already finished and were at the school during makeup time. In that instance, we did get these because they were level 4 students, they're doing their final makeup hours, and they were working with the level 1 students, assisting the level 1 students preparing for their skills check-off list, which I do accept that was the students, the level 4 students should have been at a medical facility to hone in on their scores and be graduated. And I do agree with that, and that policy is in process of being revised so that no level 4 students will be doing any makeup on the campus. The students were on campus doing makeup hours, there was a few of them, and we were working with the level 1s. All right, Mrs. Gomez advised us that day that the students could not be there with level 1 students because they need to be with the teacher and not with level 4 graduating students. Since that time, I have informed the staff and policies will follow that no level 4 students should be on campus doing any makeup time with level 1 students. So that policy is really with, it has to be a policy created because the policy is not enforced. I have spoken with the staff and several times. One of the other violations that we had was that there was no instructional plan in place. The instructional plan has always been in place ever since the program has been written. But we've had turnovers of administration 4 or 5 times. And somewhere along the line, they took I talked with Ms. McAvoy, I said, what happened with the instructional plan? And she informed me that the instructional plan is there, but they told me we weren't using it anymore. So that was one of our violations as well. Since then, the instructional plan has been put in place. All faculty have been trained. I have sent in the corrections for that with affidavits of signatures from the faculty that it has been improved and is currently being used. Since that time, I've lost, the last few months I've lost about 6 instructors due to unprofessional behaviors and layoff practices. We are correcting, I sent in number 5 and 6 of the violations were sent in this week. And I was Mrs. Faye told me that she has been reviewing them. And I will be continuing to fulfill the violations that were put on us to correct them. One of the ones was, of course, we need to hire more faculty. I did hire a new faculty person came this week, was transferred from the Moreno Valley campus. And she was moving to Ventura, so she transferred to our campus. So now I do have one other instructor. One of the other problems we had is we didn't have enough OB and pediatric sites. So I do have a promise from the Ventura County Medical Center that will give us, we're supposed to start in January. They have agreed to allow our students to come there. So this is a major clinical site that we will be obtaining because we do need pediatrics and OB, like every other business school, we need pediatrics and OB. So Ventura County Medical Center has agreed to allow us to start there, which is a wonderful clinical site. And I don't have the contract signed yet. We did do an agreement with them, and we're waiting to get back to the state, but that's part of the county, to get back their approval, because they have agreed to accept us as a rotating site for our level medical services students as well as our level 4 specialty students. So these are some of the things that Mrs. Gomez and I have been discussing about starting a new class, because I did put in the proposal to start a new class October 24th, and one of the criteria was that I needed to start getting more staff and more appropriate clinical sites. So there is improvement in that area. One of the other complaints that we had was that we had students that told us go back and they didn't learn anything since they've been at the Career Care Institute. Well, that same group of students has graduated, and about half of them have finished all of their graduation criteria. I've had several to give me a call. They've already passed state boards from that. Mary Bell and a couple others that have already passed state boards from that class. So it is looking well. The new class that I took over both sets of level 4s when Mrs. McAvoy left. So the new level 4s that are finishing up on the 20th, that class completed all of their material. That class has done their clinical makeups that they've done in the medical areas, as well as they all successfully passed their final exams, and they all have passed the exit exam, and their applications are ready to be submitted. I'm very proud of that class. They did really well. This time all of them had passed the exit exam before they ever finished passing the final exam for the school. We do use ATI as our assessment tool. One of the problems that came about this class that formed a complaint against us, or these two students that formed a complaint against us, it was a major complaint, and this is when we implemented ATI green light status with the virtual coach as part of that graduation criteria. Okay, these students signed the contract that they agreed to it, but then when we got down to assigning them to virtual ATI, they had not completed their proper exams, which would allow them to be on virtual ATI. And of course, this is when the students became disgruntled and felt as if we were just lengthening their program. So it's like, wow, they did not want to do ATI. So we went back and looked at the regional contracts, and we let these students read the contracts of admissions, which said that they could pass the exit exam or comprehensive predictor with an 80% and be considered graduate of Career Care Institute. This was
have you presented all of this in written form and have consent?
that's what we were doing now. Yeah.
Okay.
We were on so Denise McAvoy was the DON, and she sent in responses. Okay, now that I've got the board responses back, Denise left, so I have been approved as the DON now. So I'm working on those things that were not approved that Denise had already sent in.
So we have documentation of what you're working on at this time, correct? Is there anything in summary as we address your request that you want us to know that is out, that you have considered? If we have the documentation, then that's what we'll be working from.
Okay, the only documentation that I have seen is the training. Mrs. Gomez wanted me to prove that I had trained my staff with the instructional plan. I had done that, and I've seen it presented at your board with affidavits of teacher signatures. One of the other things they wanted to do was the remedial process and the advancements that were not filled out on back and front with outcomes on it. And that has also given that in service and have submitted that to board. That was violation number 6. I have presented that stuff to boards already, and now we're working on one. And number 1 is the one about the Wonderlic scores, and I just finished selecting all of the Wonderlic scores from every student, active student in the school. I've looked at their GPAs, and I've looked at whether they're not whether they are receiving remediation and things like that. So that is the paperwork from violation 1 that I'm working on now. I have gone in to make sure which policies are correct. I wanted to see if our new policy of the 300 and the 350, this is the policy that the students are being admitted under. That policy was approved in 2015.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are working with your NEC. You have documented this, and so we appreciate you reviewing that for us. We want to also check with the NEC to make sure we have further information as needed. Thank you so very much. Do you, I'm thinking which one, because
mine.
initially
Right, initially it
was Ms. Gomez, and then we have, I'd like to hear from both of you, if you please.
Alright, I did go through all of the files, and I took photos of one of the records that showed the very, very low pass rate that's in your form. I did not take photos of all 16, but there were 16, and I marked them on my board that I had. So I do know that. One of the big complaints that was initiated, it was that the students were in the classroom without an instructor. What I had received was information that they were being sent into study groups and that they were being sent to this skills lab to work on ATI. And I got this validated not only from the students when I was at the campus, but also from one of the instructors that indeed the students had been doing virtual ATI instead of clearing classroom. Additionally, students, and I had documents that showed that they had been brought from clinical to also work on virtual ATI.
Brought from clinical to work, so they were taken out of their schedule to the hospital, taken out of the hospital and brought to school to work on computers.
Virtual ATI, yes. This came from the initial director when she sent me the information.
Thank you.
As far as faculty is concerned, she has sent me the form and a new faculty has been approved. So therefore, they do have the 7 instructors that are needed. So they do have adequate staff. They still do not have the adequate clinical sites. They have not sent any of the policies that she's referred to. There was 8 original violations of that upon the date when we wrote this. 2 and 5 had already been cleared by the original director of nursing. This director has given me information, as you can see in the addendum that we wrote, it's at the very end, that clears violation number 6, which still leaves 5 of the violations outstanding, and as well as not enough clinical sites to support another trial.
Questions?
You said violation 6 has been corrected.
It has 2, 5, and 6 have been corrected. 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8 remain not.
Well, I sent 5, might not have time to see 5, I have sent 5 in.
Right, but it was also corrected by the original director of nursing. We had both. She sent it in, as well as the original director of nursing had sent it.
So, the majority of these problems, by looking at them, were generated by the director of nurses at the time not actively administering the program. Would that be a nice summary, a lot of it, based on this?
Not following their own rules. And
Right.
rules.
In other words, she didn't do her job. Okay. And so that generated student complaints, your visit, and then the resulting report. So the current director is working to clear it up. But until they clear it up, you identified 8 violations. 3 of them are clear, 5 are still remaining. The new director or current director is actively working to resolve them. She has accumulating the paperwork. You haven't received it all. she's in the process of writing it up, correct?
5 has already been sent.
Yes, but the remaining 5 are still outstanding. Okay, so basically, you're cleaning up from the previous director.
Correct.
Okay. The way I see it, Madam Chair, is that until the 5 are done, we have no choice but to go with the current recommendation because a director was there, they weren't working, it generated complaints, and to make sure that all these are resolved, we have no choice but to, my feel is to endorse the NEC recommendation.
My other concern, I don't mean to interrupt, is that there's a lack of clinical for OB&Ps, and I understand that she's working on it, but I don't have the application that's still approved them at this point. So until we get those applications,
Which is the reason why I'm recommending
concern as well.
that you're endorsing your recommendation. It's not that we're doubting you, Matt, but because you're cleaning up the mess, we need to know that you are following through and following up on it.
Yes,
The only way to do that is to endorse the recommendation from the NECs. My concern is these students pay good money, and regardless if they're complaints or not, they have the right to come to us and to voice their concerns, and we have the responsibility to make sure that your school is meeting the criteria. Your predecessor didn't do the job. And so my recommendation, Madam Chair, would be to endorse the NEC recommendations as is.
And as the other committee member present, I do not see any additional evidence that would change my feeling of also endorsing the recommendation. We understand there is a possibility that there will be additional forthcoming documentation. At that time, it may change the circumstance. But as of date, we do not have sufficient evidence that would make us not accept the recommendation.
May I add one more thing, ma'am?
Please.
Ma'am, you did ask about your concern about your ongoing admissions. My recommendation would be get your house in order, get your school in order, and once you come off probation, reapply. There's nothing that says that once you lose it, you can't get it back. Once your once your school is in order, and we see that it is running properly, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, there's nothing to stop you from asking for reinstatement once a sufficient amount of time is passed to show that it is in fact running and you are meeting the expectations of the board in all respects. Cheryl?
That's correct. And in terms of the admission of additional classes, you're certainly able to make that request at any time, even while you're still on provisional approval. The recommendation as adopted says that you would have to, it has to be approved by the board, but you certainly can make that. Now, if your concern is the ongoing admissions, our recommendation would be that you not, that is most likely not going to happen until you get all of your violations corrected. The other thing that I think is important to remember is that while the director was there, and that was an approved director, she was being pulled out. And I recognize that you see you were unaware of that, but there were certain things that, there was a long string of things. The complaints, yes, generated the visit, but at the visit, the NEC was able to find that the actual complaints were confirmed, so that there really were problems that do have to be addressed. But once they're done, then certainly.
Well, as you see, and we do recognize, well, I do recognize the problems, and I think one of the things that had me confused was that the students have all the right to word complaint and issue complaint. I was unaware. At that time, I was coming to the school 2 days a week because I go to all 3 campuses. And I was when I asked them, well, why didn't you tell somebody? Why didn't you report something? Why would you tell us? And it was I had one teacher that was telling them that I was the one pulling Ms. McEvoy from their classes. And I mean, I was so insulted, it's like I never did that. But the students believed that because I had another teacher that was feeding students information from administration.
You also have to, you also have to remember, students, every school has to post in the school that if they have concerns, they're supposed to contact us. And they were exercising that because they felt that they couldn't go to you, they couldn't go to the director, where else could they go? And we can't fault them for using the avenues that we encourage you to advertise. That if they have complaints, they're supposed to go to us. And we responded the way we're supposed to, and you did what you're supposed to by that you can go. So the system worked, not to your satisfaction, obviously, because basically you were cut out of the loop.
Yeah, I didn't even know anything until
In all due respect, because of the circumstance, it appears that there is new knowledge for you as a supervisor of multiple campuses, and also for the campus being that we are now focusing upon. It will also be addressed in terms of all the concerns that, in this case, 2 students brought to light. Madam,
No, I was going to say that we appreciate that, and that in itself, it doesn't sound like was the reason for the recommendation. But I think it's good that you're going to work closely with Ms. Gomez and Ms. Silverman to correct those. And so then our next conversation with the Education Committee in November hopefully will be a much more positive one. But I didn't want to, for those who are sitting waiting to have their time at the podium, I wanted to make sure we were done. But thank you so much for that, and I'm glad to hear that you're continuing to do all of that improvement.
Thank you. And thank you. We want to move on to Pasadena.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I would actually recommend that you make a formal motion, and so that you can kind of follow your traditional, the opportunity for public comment. So I realize there's only 2 of you, but since you've had a little bit of dialogue after, about it, just to make the record really clear about what you're doing.
We're very happy to do that.
I'm going to make your motion.
We're gonna make a
second,
And then
Motion to accept the NEC recommendation as presented.
And I second that motion.
And for clarification, so this is a recommendation of this committee to the board, correct?
Yes.
That is absolutely correct.
All right.
Thank you.
And so,
We, in a sense, are doing some early legwork
right.
to assist our colleague board members.
Great. And
Does
then
this
so,
mean that we would be on the November agenda or on the February agenda?
I'm sorry, your question was?
I said that, what does that mean? Which, will it be on agenda for board in November or January?
The committee's report will be on the.
I just want to remind you of what Ms. Anderson shared, that as things progress and as you begin to address all the violations, then at any time you can put forth a request for a class. That aside, this item, in terms of the report that was presented by our NEC, it will be on our formal agenda for our board meeting. This is a committee. It will be on the board's agenda. I hope that helps.
so public comment and then a vote.
Yes.
Further public
We
comment.
will.
I suppose.
No, we will. And as the legal has advised, we welcome public comment. And if you're interested, please approach the podium. And it would be on this item. Not seeing anyone approaching, I will move on to 5B. We will call for the vote. And What's so difficult? There's only two people. For the formality, I will call for the vote, and I will ask my colleague with your vote, please.
Aye.
My vote, yes. If the motion is approved and carried. Let the minutes show that it was 100%. And thank you for the opportunity for a little spin. All right. For the Pasadena City College, I guess if you're calling it 3 times, that means this really is your opportunity.
We can stand up now.
And while you're coming forth, I'm going to let Ms. Gomez talk to the consultant's report, and it seems that she has been working with one of our newest NECs.
Yes, and there is a typo in here that we would like to draw your attention to.
Please.
Page 3, last paragraph. It states this data substantiates the program's non-compliant.
Last paragraph.
Page 3.
It should say non, it should read non.
It should read non.
Non-compliant.
Thank you.
Because if you count up the 18 quarters, 10 of them were non-compliant.
That makes more sense. All right. If you please.
Really, we agree.
And would you be kind enough to identify yourself?
Okay, I'm Carly Christensen. I'm the director for the vocational nursing program at Pasadena City College.
I'm Donna Nelson, the assistant director at Pasadena City College.
And do you agree with the NEC recommendation?
No arguments there. Very good.
Any comment
We would
that
like,
anything you want us to
there's
know?
just a couple of things. We do want to make sure that the education committee is aware of attachment C, which is our response earlier when we were notified of the low pass rate, February 22nd. So it's agenda item 5B, attachment C, and I'm thinking you don't need me to stand here and reread a list of things that we're doing now to improve, and then just to say that we haven't had a chance yet since we have come on board with the vocational nursing program. Our director, the former director, retired in the summer of 2014. That's the last group of students that graduated who have been taken the NCLEX exam. Then we put the program on hold for a year so that I came on board, Donna came on board, so that we could do a curriculum review and make a plan for what we might change and how we could improve the program. All of which is pretty much here in attachment C. The most recent group of students that have graduated have not yet. They finished in August 2016, so they haven't yet had the opportunity. We're expecting this fall a good number of them to take the NCLEX exam, but we don't have any results yet. But we have just one other thing that we would really like to. I really ask for guidance and help from the education committee because we are a community college, and in looking at our program, we had many students up to 2012 that we were graduating that we had pass rate into the 90s, 90% was fairly common for us. Part of what we're thinking is the difficulty for us is that as a state school, we are really beholden to two different regulatory bodies. One is the NCLEX, or not, I mean One is the Board of Nursing. The other is actually the state education system. Things coming down from the Chancellor's office in Title V. And we very much feel that we're in a bit of a squeeze here as a state institution because we understand the need for adequate pass rates. In fact, I voted for that at one time years ago. But we also are under quite a bit of pressure from the state to lower barriers of admission. And so it's making it very hard for us compared to, say, our RN program at Pasadena City College that is allowed to be much more discriminatory in terms of what kind of student they bring in. And it did seem that as time was going on around 2012, the students that were coming into our program really were not as well academically prepared.
Which is no coincidence in our opinion.
So I guess what we're asking is, can you all help us with that in terms of having the state perhaps not, asking the state not to make us compliant with this part of Title V, the RN programs at this point, I understand, are not having to be in the same way that we are.
If I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm speaking to you not only as a board member, but someone who works in the institution. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You're talking about the pass rate on an examination that is taken after individuals complete a program? Is that your reference?
Yes.
All right. If I understand Title V, it's about equitable opportunities for admission. We do have to ensure that on exit, individuals meet the criteria of the workplace that they will be entering. So it does place us as individuals working in public post-secondary institutions in the state of California under Title V to do or take actions, which might mean remediation and other forms of support, to ensure that on the exit, individuals meet those set standards.
I think
It's challenging,
it's very challenging.
but it can be done.
I think to be very specific about what we would like to be able to do is take our A students or B students and our prerequisites instead of someone who's taken a nutrition class 3 times, for instance, before they got a C. Not make it, that anyone who has met prerequisites, then it's just a lottery for who we are going to take. Also, if we could even give some kind of entrance academic preparation exam, like HESI, like the TEAS, and use that as a vision criteria. It has just made it very clear. We've noticed that we students have been coming in with lower reading levels.
Being an educator,
Right.
I know exactly where you're coming from.
Talking about.
One of the things that we've done that you'll find very helpful is I go back to the BVN Educators Organization, California Vocational Educators. And it's a nice forum to be able to discuss what problems we have and kind of share. One of the tenets I teach my students is that none of us are as smart as all of us. And there's nothing better than group think of people who have to go through exactly what you're doing. I am not familiar with Title V. However, I have many colleagues that teach at the public school across the state, both Oregon and Belgium. one of the things that they've been moving away from is the lottery. You start with 50 students, and you lucky to graduate 25 in the 2 years for an RN program. And an LVN program, which is 2 semesters, maybe 3 semesters, you start with 50, and then you're lucky to graduate 20. It's very high, and it should be, because we deal with people's lives. Our job is to make their lives better, and that the graduates are supposed to be professional, they're supposed to be safe, and they're supposed to be competent. Okay. And if we don't hold that line, everybody in this room, if we don't hold that line, we're putting the people of California at risk for substandard care, which is what this board is designed to prevent. So what my understanding is, talking to my fellow educators at the different levels, both public and private, is especially the public schools. I'm not sure, I can't vouch for any of them. I won't say what the schools are, because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Is that they're moving away from the lottery and going back to the merit. That they take the A students, that they look at what everybody's done, and give credit. So what's happening is, instead of starting with 50 and graduating 25, you're starting with 50 and graduating 45, because life happens. And I don't know what your criteria or the limitations under Title V are, but a person who does well academically, nursing is critical thinking, master's level, where you have to be able to perform, multitask, and critical think at each task. And that if a person is not academically or critically thinking prepared, they're not going to be successful in any nursing program. But the other side of the coin is, as other schools have seen, if they are in trouble, we are incumbent on them to tutor, monitor, and set assignments to try to make them successful. But after a reasonable amount of time to try to make them successful, we let them go. There are some people that want to be nurses that maybe shouldn't be nurses.
That said, part of the Title V defines clear, and this is California, and it's the only state that has such prescription for public higher ed, and it's legislative. And it does define what community colleges will do, as well as the CSU and the UC. The piece about equitable opportunity and you're part of the community college system, ultimately it describes that you open doors and provide opportunities for all, for pathways. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, it period does not mean that you exit someone in a career, particularly where we're talking about public health and public safety, without the necessary tools to meet and do the work of that profession. Also, besides clinical healthcare individuals in the 2-year public institutions, we do hairdressers, we do car mechanics, and we would not in the same graduate or complete a certificate program in the California Community College system as a pass if we know someone could not do brakes and we say by certificate they can do brakes. None of us would be safe.
And we wouldn't have someone graduate that does not pass the exams and is not safe. It's the front door that we're worried about. The back door we're taking care of. We want to see better results for you and for us. We want to continue this program. We're passionate about it. We resurrected it because it was dormant after our director resigned. And I myself moved from 4 semesters to the LVN program. And I'm finding it is I am enjoying the heck out of it, because these are students from the community that have never been to college, and they're so proud, and we want them to succeed. So it's so sad to have somebody get into the program. Their heart is alive with gladness, and they're doomed to fail because they really don't have strong foundation because of the criteria. I totally hear what you're saying. But I guess we're looking.
All of us are doing
Yeah.
the CC, the CSU, and the UC might not say, but the UC too, because of what Title V says for us. We must find ways within our institution to prepare those that we admit to make it to the end. So we will leave you with that and the challenge of what you might need to do.
Legislation. Frankly, that is one of our agendas, because you folks, you know what's going on out there, and you want these people to be successful, and we really appreciate that.
Thank
We appreciate the forum.
And I'm going to thank you. I'm going to call for a motion. I just want to restate, I heard that you do accept the report, and then based on that, may I have a motion?
Motion to accept NEC recommendations as presented.
I second that motion. Do we have any public comments? If you do, would you please approach the podium?
My name is Maureen Waltz, and I'm the director of the vocational nursing program at St. Joseph Junior College. And the Chancellor's Office with Title V will answer many questions. The way that Santa Rosa Junior College has been able to support students when they become admitted to the program is by having a number of prerequisites that they must meet before actually applying to the program. And I'd be happy to share, I'm sure other schools would too, sorts of prerequisites that we require a student to have completed before ever they can apply to the program. And Title V, as you know, you cannot have an entrance exam for a community college. You cannot even use the Chancellor's School for a community college, but they do accept a strong prerequisite program. So it's worked so far. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, not seeing any, I'm going to call for the vote. And
Aye.
thank you. Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. And we have another school. If you will please approach. It is Shasta College Vocational Nursing Program. While we're approaching, I'm going to ask the NECs to speak with us. And I would assume it's okay.
Shasta College has been in existence since 1953.
If you be louder, please.
Shasta College has been in existence since 1953 and then given full approval until this 2016. Their approval was to be reapproved in May of 2016. And going through the process and the program's record, there were certain violations noted, in addition to the fact that starting in June 2014, their state board passings decreased for the next 7 quarters. So, in addition to that, they found 6 violations. Of the 6 violations, 5 have been corrected. And the main one was the fact that insufficient clinical sites to meet the need of the program. There's also been a new director put into place in July 2016, who I've spoken with, and they're in the process of fixing that one. But out of the 6, 5 were corrected.
Do you accept the report of the
We do accept the report.
in case you have some additional comment for us?
I do.
Please.
My name is Kathy Reyes. I'm the dean for Sciences at Shasta College, and so vocational nursing is one of my programs. And first of all, I would like to say that we have been incredibly thankful for the support from our NEC, both the one that was working with us prior to Margarita's assignment. We are all new in our position since our last review, which was several years ago, and so it was sort of a new process for us. And I guess through that process, we learned a lot about our own program that we were all new to. Nancy came in during the last class and was then moved into the director position on retirement like the other one. So it's all been sort of a new process for us. We do have that one class, and I think if you'll look at the records, you'll see that it's only that one class that caused some severe decreases in our percentage of pass rate. This was an unusual class, and I don't want to make excuses for it because all classes could be unusual and have their own statistics, but this was an unusual class in that we had 8 students whose English was not their primary language. They all spoke pretty well enough, but it became very apparent as they went through the program, and particularly as they sat there in their intellects, that their understanding was hampered by their quality of education and their English understanding. That was one of the particular things that we have 22 students and 8 of them are in that category. Since that time, we've only had one other class that we've completed that graduated in May of 2016. And at this point, we've only had a few of them that we've been tested yet.
And can you speak up so that everyone, including the recording, can hear?
Oh, absolutely. I can use my lecture voice and be quite loud. So yes, with respect, a little clarification, we actually just graduated with cohort in May this year. The students who have kept in touch with us, out of 16 who have tested since May of this year, 13 have passed, which we're pretty excited about because that's definitely an improved pass rate from the previous class. We were working closely with our previous board consultant, Ms. Johnson, and we had come up with an action plan addressing the very full pass rates of the one cohort which had tested between spring of 2015 and spring of 2016. Many resources have been put into place since then with the assistance of our need. The students now have access to Kaplan testing, they have the readiness A test, they have the 2-day prep class, they have the readiness B test. We've also changed our learning management system at the college, and so we were able to introduce online testing for some of our tests throughout the program's second, third semester to introduce the students to online computerized testing, because our previous cohort, they said that was one of they felt a big disadvantage for them was that, and many of you may know this, when a student who goes through many EDSL classes, they take a written test, they do what they're taught, so they do a lot of circling and a lot of lining, they put a lot of words in boxes, because it helps them understand the question better, and they were not able to utilize that skill in online testing. So they really felt disadvantaged at that point. So definitely noticed with this recent cohort that graduated, we were able to introduce the online testing. They had a better idea of what to expect. They could look at the questions differently, come up with a different manner to perhaps pull out important words. So that has been very helpful. As far as our violations, we realized that the one that we are still working on right now is our clinical sites. We actually just finished a contract, and Ms. Belkins is aware of the application that will be coming her way, which will complete our pediatric rotations. It's very unfortunate that the hospital and the students were doing their OB rotation and they closed their OB unit in September. So, I know, and I think this is a problem that many of the VN programs are experiencing. So we have one hospital right now who's very willing to work with us, so your students can have probably 60% of their hours covered. We have another clinic that is very interested in working with us. Will get back to us next month. So that's still a little ways out. Our first semester will be through their OBNPT, which does not occur until September of 2017. And speaking with Ms. Valdez on the phone earlier in the week, maybe it was last week, she reassured me that we had a little time, but we're not going to push it out too late because we really would like to have this rectified and move forward so our students can be successful because we have current cohort. And we don't want anything to stand in the way from graduating next December, so we want to make sure we get that taken care of. That was the things that we did next. Oh, lastly, she may have shared this with you. We are working from a very old curriculum from 2000. So our instruction plan is 16 years old. We are looking to revise it. The plan is to have a revision complete by June 1st of 2017. At that time, we're going to address and request approval to decrease our theory ratio from 1 to 3, which it is now, for maternity fees to 1 to 2, because of the challenges with finding clinical sites. I believe we would be able to fulfill the clinical requirements if we could do that. So that's.
I have been speaking with Nancy. She is making an effort. She has asked questions. They do have more hours than required by the state. Sufficient where they can make some adjustments. Still stated in the documents, in fact, have more, continue with more hours, but put them adequately into the different areas. They have not filled that one violation, which is clinical sites for semester 3. They do have adequate for semester 2. They have 1 and 2. 3 comes in 2017. That is what she's working on, getting the contracts and everything to have those clinical sites for 2017. And in addition, they are working on the major curriculum revision to be able to meet all the regulations that are required.
Given your comments, are you changing your recommendation?
No, I'm still saying provisional 1 year. I only put them on 1 year so that we can continue and assist them and then reevaluate.
Thank you. Question?
Being in education for 20 some odd years, I found a way that may help. One thing I've learned for years, and all ones who know me know, I say this often, Peds and OB sites are like hen's teeth. Hard to find, and once you keep them, once you get them, do everything you can to keep them. One thing that worked is I thought outside the box. Recommendations, find out who the school districts are in your area. By California law, every child is supposed to be educated, including those with medical conditions. Find out where your kids are that have medical conditions and getting educated. Follow the trail. I found in my district that they had a 4-classroom school of kids with medical needs. We got into it. And they had everything you would need to meet pediatric hours. So recommendation is check your local schools, find out where the kids are that have special needs, find out where they're getting educated. A lot of them are mainline in regular schools, and I got lucky as I found a 4-classroom school, and every one of the kids with special needs education, medically getting to school, and they were doing GTT feedings and catheterization, everything you need on campus. And I started sending teachers and students there, and we got our hours. So recommendation is follow the breadcrumbs. Find out where they are in your local area and follow. Because remember, every LVN program, every RN program in the state are looking for the same thing. So you are in competition. It's just a suggestion. It worked for me. Think outside the box on what you can do to find these find these children and see if you can give them extra little care. Because they love the attention that our students give them, the extra one-on-one, kind of like a private duty, and they get the care they need, and we get the hours that we need, and everybody wins. Just a little suggestion.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Other comments?
No comments?
Okay. I am seeking a motion.
Motion to accept the NDC recommendation as presented.
Second. Any discussion here? Public comment? Seeing no one approaching the podium, I'm going to call for a vote.
Aye.
All in favor of, please vote.
Sorry. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. And also, there is a place for public comment for items not on the agenda. If there is anyone that wishes to approach the podium at this time, if you will, and this is for items that are not on the agenda. Seeing no one, suggestions for future agenda items for the Education Committee? Anything? Then I need a motion for adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
I won't make you vote.
Thank you to everyone who was here today. We appreciate your time, and we certainly do celebrate you for all of your effort and the work you do. Thank you.